Hey there, this is Katie from KT and the Squid. In this video, I'm going to show you how to make the Spring Cardi. If you're new to my channel, be sure to subscribe and all that fun stuff. This video is meant to be used with the written pattern. I will be making size small in the video, so if you're making any other size, be sure to reference the written pattern for any differences in stitch counts or row counts. I will link to different places where you can find the pattern. It is available for free on my website. You can also purchase a PDF from either Ravelry, Etsy, or We Crochet if you'd like to print the pattern. So this pattern is great for beginners. If you know how to chain and half double crochet, then you're good to go. There's no seaming, there's no shaping. So basically once you're done stitching, all you have to do is weave in your ends and maybe block it if you'd like, and then it's done. So it's a nice lightweight cardigan. I like to wear it over a dress or a tank top or something, but it's still nice and lightweight and you can wear it in warmer weather. So before you get started, there is a couple things that you will need to do. The first thing is you need to choose the size that you're going to make. In the pictures and stuff, I'm wearing size small and my bust is about a 32. The Spring Cardi was designed to fit with 0 ease. That means that it should fit exactly to your body. So if you look at the pattern and you look at the bust size, choose the bust size that is closest to your actual measurement. So once you know your size, you can purchase the correct amount of yarn. The yardage is listed in the pattern, and you can grab a crochet hook. Once you have your yarn and your crochet hook, you can start making your gauge swatch. If you're not quite sure how to make it, do a gauge swatch, I do have a video that goes through it pretty extensively, so I will link to that video. Since this is a garment, it's really important that you get the correct gauge, so I would spend a little bit extra time on that. I'm making this in a different yarn than I designed it in, so I ended up making 3 gauge swatches before I got the right gauge. So if you have to make multiple gauge swatches, don't worry, it's normal, even I had to. So once you have done your gauge swatch and you've gotten the correct gauge, then you can get started. So I'm gonna flip the camera around and we're gonna get started. For this video, I will be using Palette from We Crochet. This is 100% Peruvian Highland wool, and it is a fingering weight yarn. This is actually my first time using this yarn, and after doing the gauge swatches, I do quite like it, and it comes in a lot of colors. So I will link to where you can get this yarn from We Crochet. And then I ended up needing this 4mm hook, which is a Furls Candy Shop hook. I will link to where you can find this hook from Furls, but you can use any hook that you need to obtain the correct gauge. You also might find it helpful to have a few stitch markers handy, which is what I have right here. This will help you keep track of your rows or maybe your stitches so that you don't have to count so much. Like I said, I'm making size small. So to begin, we're going to start with the back panel. So this will be the part that is on your back when you're wearing the cardigan. So for size small, I'm going to need to chain 71. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and I will come right back and show you what to do for row 1. So if you're having a hard time counting your chains, you can use stitch markers to mark maybe every 10 or 20 chains. It just makes it a little bit easier to keep track of your counting. Maybe if you get interrupted while you're counting, then you don't have to rip the whole thing out and start all over. So I have 71 chains. Be sure to reference the pattern if you're making a different size to see how many chains you need to make for your size. So row 1, you need to half double crochet into the second chain from the hook, and then the skipped chain does not count as a stitch. So to half double crochet, you will yarn over, insert your hook into the stitch indicated, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through all 3 loops. So we're just gonna half double crochet into each chain all the way across. Once you've finished row 1, you might want to go back and double count your stitches just to make sure that you have the right amount. So for row 2, you are going to chain 1 and turn, and the chain 1 from here on out does not count as a stitch. Then you're simply just going to half double crochet in each stitch across. And then you are going to repeat row 2 until you have a total of 26 rows. If you're making anything other than a size small, you will have to reference the pattern to see how many rows you need. So while I'm working this, it is going to get bigger, and I will probably place a stitch marker maybe every 10 rows just so I don't have to go back and keep counting. So I am going to half double crochet all the way across, and then I'm going to repeat row 2 until I have 26 rows, and then I will come back and show you what you need to do next. Here's my 26 rows that I completed for my back panel. I placed my stitch markers about every 10 rows, or exactly 10 rows, so that I didn't have to go back and count every time. It just makes it, this isn't necessary, but it just makes it a little bit easier to keep track of your rows. So now the instructions say to fasten off, so that's what I'm going to do. And just for reference, this back panel only goes to, so this is the starting chain, which will sit on your shoulder, and then this part will go to your underarm. So I'm just going to grab this photo here from the pattern. So what we're making right here is really just this part right here, just so you know where we are. So next we're going to start the front panels. So it says to return to the beginning chain of the back and join to the first chain. So my beginning chain is down here, so I'm going to flip it over, and then it says to join to the first chain. So my first chain is right here, so we're going to join there. And so for the front panel, you're going to be working on the opposite sides of the chain, so you'll start working on the back end of the chain. So I'm going to go ahead and join and chain 1 here. So for the first row, it says to chain 1 and then half double crochet in the first 20. Now if you want to make this a little bit easier on yourself, you can grab a stitch marker and count 20 stitches. So I have, let's see, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. So that's my 20th. That way, when I'm stitching, I don't have to count while I'm stitching, just because it takes longer to stitch. So you just, I'm gonna do a half double crochet in each chain until I get to my stitch marker. Just a little trick that I do to make things easier on my brain. So I'm going to work half double crochet in each chain until I get to that stitch marker. And again, if you're making a different size, you will have to reference the pattern for your stitch count. I've completed row 1 and worked to my stitch marker. So now I'm going to do row 2, which is just a chain 1 and turn and half double crochet all the way across. So next, after you finish row 2, you'll repeat row 2 until you have a total of 26 rows for your front panel. So I'm going to leave this stitch marker here just so it's kind of a reference for me to where to start counting. So this is row 1, row 2, and then I'm going to go to 26 rows. So I will come back when I have that completed. I finished my first front panel. I did my 26 rows and added my stitch markers every 10 rows to help me keep count, and then I fastened off. So next we're going to start the second front panel. So we're going to return back to the starting chain, and we're going to skip a number of stitches, and then we'll join and work just like we did for the first front panel. So these stitches that we're skipping here, this is going to end up laying on the back of your neck when you're wearing the cardigan. So this will fold over, this will be on one shoulder, then you'll have a second front over here on your other shoulder. So you'll want to reference your pattern to see how many stitches you need to skip So I need to skip 30 and then I will join with my yarn. So I'm skipping 30 chains from where I ended up here. So from the stitch marker that I left off. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30. So I will join into the next stitch to start the next front panel. And you're going to work exactly the same as you did for the first front panel. So I'll chain 1, and then I will do half double crochet all the way across to the end. And then I will repeat half double crochet rows until I have 26 rows. So I will come back when I have all 26 rows done. After you finish the second front panel, your piece should look something like this. So next we're going to start the bottom. So it's important, the instructions state not to fasten off, so I haven't fastened off of my second front. So what we're going to do is this is the shoulder seam right here, and like I said, this part is going to fit along the back of your neck. So we are going to fold it in half like this. So for the next row, you're going to start the setup to start working the bottom of the cardigan. So this is just the top. So like I said, this is where your neck will sit, and then these will join together over here, and this will become the underarm, and then we'll work the length of the bottom down here. So for the first row of the bottom, this is really just the setup. So the first row can be the most confusing if you're just reading the pattern. So we'll chain 1 and turn. And what we're going to do is we're going to half double crochet across the last row of the second front. So we'll work a row of half double crochet across here. And when you come to the end, instead of chaining and turning and working across the other direction, you are actually going to start working across the back. So this is where we fastened off on the back. So my next half double crochet is going to go into the first stitch of the back where we fastened off before. So I'm just going to work a row of half double crochet across the back. And then once you get to the end of the back, your next stitch is going to go into the first stitch of your first front. And then you'll work a row of half double crochet across the first front. So the new stitch count for this row is listed in the pattern. For size small, I should have 110. You'll want to, after you finish this row, you should stop and just double count to make sure you have the right amount of stitches. So when I get to the end here, I'm going to work this last stitch. I am going to take a stitch marker. I can move this one. And I'm just going to mark my first row, just so I know where my first row starts, because that's where I'm going to start counting for the next set of rows. So for rows 3 through 36 of the bottom, you'll just work your half double crochet, and that's the same for all sizes. So this is what it should look like right now. So everything is joined in that last row. This part is going to, here, I'll flip it around. So again, here's the part that's going to go against our neck, and then that last row where we joined everything together, that's going to become the underarm, and then this is the arm opening of the cardigan. If you'd like, you could try this on as it is right now and just to make sure things are kind of fitting okay. If it is too tight, if this arm opening is too tight, you can take out that last row and maybe add a couple rows to your fronts and your bottom. Just make sure you're adding the same amount for both, just to give it a little bit of extra wiggle room. That's a super easy fix. So then for rows 3 through 36, we're just going to work half double crochet. And I will come back and show you what to do next. Again, I'm going to use my stitch markers to help me keep track of my rows. So I will be back once I finish up to row 36. Here I've worked the bottom 36 rows of my cardigan. As you can see, here's the arm opening, and then I worked 36 rows of half double crochet. So for the last couple rows, we're going to end and finish with a couple decreases, and that's just going to kind of add a little bit of a curve down here on the bottom. So I'm going to show you what you're going to do for rows 37 through 44. So to start row 37, you're going to chain 1 and turn. And then this first stitch is going to be a half double crochet 2 together. So to do that, you're going to yarn over, insert your hook into the first stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over, insert your hook into the next stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over, and then pull through all of the loops on your hook. So that is a decrease. So your row is going to start and end with a half double crochet 2 together. So now I'm just going to work a half double crochet all the way across, and I'll show you how to finish the row. I worked half double crochet all the way across for row 37 with 2 stitches left. So in the last 2 stitches, I'm going to work a half double crochet 2 together. So just like before, yarn over, insert your hook, pull up a loop, yarn over, insert your hook into the last stitch, pull up a loop, then yarn over, pull through all of the loops. So I'm just going to repeat row 37 until I have 44 rows total, and then we will start the finishing or the trim all the way around the cardigan. When you're done with row 44, the bottom of your cardigan should look something like this. So now it is time to start the finishing. So the finishing rounds are going to go across the bottom of the cardigan, up one side, across the back of the neck, down the other side, and then you'll join to the beginning and repeat that. So that you'll repeat that for a total of 7 rounds. So, and it's all half double crochet. So I'm just going to show you how to do that. The trickiest part, if you've never done this before, is going to be working into the ends of the sides. So I'll show you how to do that. So to start, you're just going to work across the bottom like normal. So you'll chain 1 and turn. And then you'll work, here, I'll bring you a little closer. And then you'll work a row of half double crochet across the bottom. So once I get all the way across the bottom, I will show you how to work up the sides. So I made it across the bottom, and I'm getting ready to work up the side of my cardigan here. So these are the decrease rows that we worked at the bottom. So for me, when I was first learning how to work into the sides of stitches, the hardest part was figuring out where should my hook go. So the pattern says you need to work 1 half double crochet per row. It doesn't really matter where your hook goes into each row. What matters is that you keep it consistent throughout, so you're always putting your hook in the same spot for each row so it looks neat. You don't want to just be putting it in random spots so it looks kind of funky as you're working up. So the bottom part where we did these decrease rows it's going to be a bit different than when you get here to where there was no decreasing. So I'm just going to show you how I'm going to do this. I'm going to, you can kind of see there's like this little spot right here for this first round. So I'm going to put my hook in there. So I'm going to go right here. Hopefully you can see that. And then for the next row, this last stitch was our decrease stitch. So I'm going to go kind of in the middle of that. Hopefully we're focusing in the middle of that right there. So I'm going to go right there. So the next one, I want to make sure I'm going into the same spot that I went in back here. So that's right there. And like I said, it doesn't really matter if you're going into the same spot I am. What matters is that you're keeping it consistent throughout. So if you find a way that you like, that it looks, a way that looks better that you like, or that you think looks better, then I say go for it. Just keep it consistent. And then that's my last decrease row. So now I'm going to start working up the sides that didn't have a decrease. So I'm going to try and go into a similar spot. So that was my decrease row here. My next row is right here. So I'm going to go right in here. And then I'm going to go, there's this spot where this last stitch is. I'm just going to go around that last stitch. And kind of the key is that you want to make sure that you're grabbing enough of the stitches so that you're not, so for example, okay, I'm going to go around this last stitch. I don't want to go into this spot right here because you see it's only like a couple pieces of yarn there. So it's going to look a little funny because it's going to create a bit of a gap compared to the rest. So I don't want to work there. I want to grab a little bit more of the fabric as I'm working in. So I'm going to go into this little spot right here. And also it's helpful to find a place that's kind of easy to get your hook into. You don't want to be struggling the whole way through because that's no fun. So I'm going to keep working up the side here. And then I'm going to go across the back of the neck and then down the other side. And then I'll join with a slip stitch to the first stitch. So I made it to the end of the trim, and then the instructions tell you to join with a slip stitch to the first stitch. And then you will chain one and you'll work half double crochet all the way around again for a total of 7 rounds for the trim. So I just want to give you a couple tips while you're working. First of all, if you don't like this slip stitch join, it will start to create a bit of a seam, and it'll be visible in the trim. If you don't like the way that looks, you can take out the slip stitch, add a stitch marker to your first stitch of each round, and then just work continuous rounds without joining with the slip stitch. That's totally up to you. Another thing is when you're working around the decreases of the bottom of the cardigan, you will notice that it will kind of curl on you a little bit. I didn't add any increasing here for the trim because I really wanted to keep this pattern super simple for beginners without having to worry about that. So there's a couple tips for you to deal with that. One, blocking will help a lot. And that's what I'll do with my cardigan, and I'll show you. 2, when you're working around the curve, just kind of like loosen up on your tension a little bit on your hands, and that might help a little bit. If you want, you could even switch to a larger hook as you go around the corner. And then the third thing, which is a little bit more complicated, is you could add a couple increases if you really want this to lay super flat. But if it doesn't really bother you that much, then it's fine. The sample photos that I have for the cardigan, I didn't do anything fancy. I just kind of left it the way it was. I blocked it as best as I could. And you can see in the photos, it does curl a little bit. And that's just, I decided to make it a part of the design of the cardigan. So again, you're going to work this for So 6 more rounds, and that'll give you the trim for the cardigan, and then we will start the sleeves. So I'm going to work the rest of those rounds, and I'll come back and I'll show you how to do the sleeves. And once you're done with the sleeves, then all you got to do is weave in your ends and we're done. I finished the trim of my cardigan, and as you can see, this is the curling that I was talking about that will happen at the bottom, but I'll show you with some blocking, this will easily be fixed. So I already did one sleeve, which is the last step for the cardigan, because it's the same on both sides, and I'll show you how to do this other sleeve. I also want to say, for this cardigan, there really is no wrong or right side. I didn't put a wrong or right side in the pattern, and the reason is because there's no seam, so really you could have this as the right side, or you could have this as the right side. It's really however you want to wear it. So this is the right side of the half double crochet trim, or if you use this side, it just has a little bit different texture. It's totally up to you. I usually choose this as my right side, but either way, you could wear it either way because there is no seam or anything. So we're going to finish with the last sleeve, and then I'll show you how I plan to block my cardigan. So to work the sleeve, you'll join to the end of a row of the arm opening closest to the underarm, and then you will chain 1 and simply work half double crochet into the end of each row, just like you did for the trim to the body of the cardigan. And once you get to the end of the sleeve, so you'll work all the way around the opening of the sleeve. Once you get to the end, just like the trim for the body, you'll join with the slip stitch, and then you'll work 7 total rounds of half double crochet. So this is my other sleeve that I've already finished, and it's basically the same as the trim of the body, so it should be pretty self-explanatory. So I did 7 rounds like the pattern says, but if you'd like a longer sleeve, you can go ahead and add a little bit more. It's up to you. I have plenty of yarn left, so if I wanted to, I could, but I wanted to stick with the pattern. So I'm going to do the second sleeve, and I will come back and show you how to block it. So my cardigan is all done. The last thing I need to do is block, and then I will weave in my ends. So I'm just going to show you real quick how I'm going to block this, and then I'll show you the finished cardigan. So here I have just a bowl of room temperature water, and then in here I have my wool wash. I will link to the wool wash that I like to use. It's unscented eucalyptus, which you can find from We Crochet. I just put a couple pumps in there, and then I'll stir it around. And then I probably could have used a bigger bowl, but this is just what I grabbed. I'm going to just put my cardigan in and make sure it gets nice and saturated. I really could have used a bigger bowl, but it's just what I grabbed. So I'm just going to kind of push it down and make sure it gets fully saturated, and then I will let this sit for 15 to 20 minutes, probably longer because I'll probably forget about it, but I'll come back and show you how to finish blocking. So this has sat here for a while. I went and grabbed a towel. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to take it out and wring out the water as best I can without twisting anything. And then I'm going to place it on my towel. So I want to use this towel to try and get out as much of the water as I can. So what I like to do is kind of lay it out. It doesn't have to be perfect. And then just kind of roll it up. And you can squeeze it. You can put it on the floor and step on it. Just try and get as much of the water out of the sweater into the towel as you can. So once you feel like you've gotten as much of the water out as you can grab a dry towel and use it to lay out your sweater. What I have, move this and move the cat. So I bought these gym mats from Amazon, and I'll link to where you can find them. These work great. One should be big enough for the size small, but you can lock them together if you need more. So what I'm going to do, I don't like to fuss too much when I'm blocking things. I'm just gonna lay it out as straight as I can. Get everything kind of straight. Let's see. So this is wool, and it'll basically dry in whatever shape you put it in. So to deal with this part down here that is curling, if you can see. So to deal with this part down here that's curling, so what you want to do is just kind of shape it out. Just kind of pat it down, and it's going to dry like that. So whatever shape you put it into, that's how it'll dry, as long as you're using wool. So once I get everything shaped the way I want it, like I said, I don't like to fuss too much with my blocking. I'm not going to pin anything. I'm just going to leave it flat to dry. And then once it's dry, I can weave in all my ends and it'll be done. And this is the finished cardigan. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. If you'd like to see more crochet videos, be sure to follow me and subscribe to my YouTube channel. I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.